anyway, Doug, the new album absolutely jaw dropping. I couldn't stop
Thank
playing
you.
it. And Glenn's voice seems to get better as he gets the older he gets.
I know he really just is. He really shines on the album, and he's the front man.
Yeah,
He's he's the one that is on top of everything, and it's beautiful. I mean, I feel like it's some of Glenn's best work. Really. I mean, I he's done he's had an amazing career. He's a treasure for the music business, for music, for
yeah,
our style of music. He's a worldwide treasure, but I feel like he really did something different with especially lyrically. Of course, the songwriting and melodies and all that stuff, and the lyrics are great. He did a great job.
yeah. When I was talking to him, he was saying it's a very spiritual album, and I didn't realize that Glenn was very spiritually inclined, and he was talking about sobriety and all of that,
Yeah,
and how his songwriting has changed over the years. So it was quite insightful, actually.
definitely. Yeah. And it was cool too to be able to collaborate on the songwriting. With when I heard that Glenn was coming in, it was like immediately I wasn't just writing stuff that I thought could be good for a good song. I was specifically writing for Glenn in the Dead Daisies.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
um, that and I started. First thing I initially worked on for him was Like No Other, just that heavy groove,
Yeah,
simple chords behind it, and I said to him, I go, man, you should put a bass solo on this. It's even before it was called bass. Can you feel my bass line? I was like, the song is very simple, and I had kind of structured it out to where it had very few parts. So I thought, why not stick after the guitar solo, do like a breakdown with the drums and let Glenn go off. So
yeah,
it was funny. He forgot about that when we were tracking it the first couple times. He was looking around like, what are you guys doing? I was like, that's your bass solo. And oh, okay, let me try something. And then he did it in one take. It was brilliant.
yeah,
He basically everything Glenn does is really brilliant. It's just a matter of which one he decides to pick. I mean, same thing with 30 Days in the Hole when we did the
mhm,
lockdown session.
yeah,
He I said to him, let's try and do a little more like I was thinking gospel, because I know Glenn's got the side of his voice that's so beautiful.
mhm,
So to do it different, if we were going to do a lockdown thing, I thought maybe I tried it with just clean guitar,
yeah,
and then I ended up finding an acoustic part that felt better. And Glenn sang it, and he would sing it, and it would be like, you know,
yeah,
chicken skin, and and then he'd stop and he'd be like, oh, I messed something up. I'm like, dude, that was insane. Why did you stop? I go, your mistakes are like, other
yeah,
people's masterpieces. So, and then, he did another take, and it was different, and it was equally amazing. And then he did another one, and he kept like going, he'd do a couple lines and he'd stop. I'm like, Glenn, it sounds killer. Just have fun, man. Just do it. And so I had all these little versions that if it was just an audio recording and I put it together with all his bass, it would have even been a more mind blowing vocal. But he did it in one take, and that's a killer vocal. But all of them were killer. They were all great.
yeah.
So it's fun to work with him, because everything he just plays or whatever, he's just messing around. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just going for it. The channeling the universe.
And I guess it helps that you guys know each other a long time, and you go back a long time, right, Glenn and you?
Yeah. We were both involved. Part of we were pallbearers in Ronnie's funeral. But prior to that, we had been friends, and we had jammed a couple times together at some events, and then later, 2015, he called me and said had been I had to step out of Whitesnake for a while, and for family stuff, I had to be home. I needed to be home, and Glenn, I was just doing some a gig in Vegas, and I was burnt on being in Vegas. It was just the heat was getting to me
Mhm.
and everything. And so he called me, he goes, "Hey, I'm going on the road, and my guitar player is busy. He's doing something, and I need somebody I can trust, like he trusts Soren Anderson a lot. He's a great
Yeah.
player, great dude." And he goes, would you do it? I was like, yes, I'm in. And we had a blast, man. It was just a trio, just guitar, bass, and drums. And that's when I knew from jamming with Glenn how great he was as a bass player, but that was where we clicked, man. It was like I really got off on his bass playing.
Mhm. But over the last few albums, I think you have four studio albums. There's one live and one covers album, right?
Yeah.
Where does this album rank for you personally?
Uh, I think it's our best work yet. I think we did great. I was really happy with Make Some Noise. I thought John Crosby did an amazing job on it with and that lineup.
Yeah.
Marty Fredrickson produced that one, and he said to us, "Let's just keep this dead simple, like a rock and roll,
Mhm.
straight ahead rock, no ballads." And then we got together and did the next studio album, Burn It Down, and we went a little heavier, a little bit darker, and we did have a ballad on there. Um, it's called "Set Me Free,"
Mhm.
but we didn't really go deep into the grooves and stuff like we did on this one. And I think it's our best work yet. I mean,
Yeah.
we always try to do that, no matter who's in the band. You want to make it better and better and better. And there's nothing wrong with any of those other albums, but I mean, we were specifically creating this most recently in 2019, and it definitely had a spark going because we were put in a situation where we could focus in the south of France and create what we did, and be free to, the band's got to gel when you make a member
Absolutely.
change.
Mhm.
So it was a great situation for us to go to a really beautiful spot in south of France, no distractions, and basically just focusing on work.
Yeah.
So
Because I liked the Daisies when John was singing, but now it's like it's a whole new level, right? And the
yeah,
same with your guitar playing. It's incredible. The guitar playing on this album is absolutely mind blowing. And I
well,
was wondering, I was thinking about it, right? Is it just that uh, maybe you feel more comfortable personally with this lineup and just the way things are? Does it just take that long for somebody to feel comfortable in a setup?
no, I think I was comfortable. I mean, John and Marco are family. I
Yeah.
hope that we do more work together. I'm sure sometime we'll probably all be on tour together or something. But um, it was just that, with this I thank you first of all, but with this batch of songs that we were working on, I kind of have grown into the mode of that less is actually more,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to just basically, it's not as like, hey, check me out on the guitar type of thing, as it is like I'm trying to play for the song and write my guitar parts for whatever makes the song the best it can be. So I, there's no trick or anything, and I was definitely comfortable even on Make Some Noise. I was super comfortable, but it was just a different producer, a different
Yeah.
group of songs, yeah. So we were, I think that in this situation, we were more focused because we didn't have to actually even get out of a car. We didn't have to live in a hotel. We were living on the property, basically just right above the kitchen. There was a bunch of
Yeah.
bedrooms, and we just come downstairs, we eat, and then go directly into the studio. And it was cool. And I think Ben Gross had a lot to do with the guitar sound and stuff.
Yeah. I was
He
just going to ask you about the guitar sound on the album.
he he's great. He took my sound and he made it, how he thought it should be. I basically play the same, and well, as far as the rhythm playing, I'm playing the same way, the same energy and stuff, and same amp, same Les Paul, same Marshall. But he kind of shaped it to work with Glenn's bass and same with David's guitar. David's playing through Friedman BE 100, and David's got a giant sound. It's very aggressive, and so Ben really was encouraging about, you know, first of all, taking my sound and making it work with what his vision was for the sound of the album. And then he said, hey, I got this amp back in LA I want you to check out. You know, I've got a couple. He like collects gear. He's still got a couple of amps of mine over there at his studio. And he goes, I got a couple of things I want to have you do when we get back to LA that'll be with different amps. I'm like, cool, great. So he had a diesel amp that was very similar to my Marshall, kind of. It had a lot of bottom end and just a big main sound kind of thing. And then he had a Marshall that he goes, this Marshall is just sick. It just does one thing. It's just like, it's just got this wild sound to it. So he goes, sometimes I might ask you to play the part through that. So I go, cool, yeah, whatever. And then he said he had a Buddha amp that the Buddha had a great clean sound. And I said, well, I got a 50 watt Marshall at my house that also has got a killer top end. I didn't bring that one to the studio, so we used for some of the little ear candy overdubs. We used all that stuff, but my favorite was the Wild Marshall. You know, he was like, I go, what did you do to it? He goes, I don't know. Somebody said they wanted to sell it, and I bought it, and it's got this thing, you know, that it does. It's basically an old Plexi that had been modded or something, you know, like a Jose type of thing.
Incredible. Yeah. Because, you know, one of the things that struck me when I was listening to the album, right, whether I listened to it on my phone, in the car, you know, surround sound, the album sounds absolutely stunning. You know, no matter where I listen to it, what speakers, you know, like I said, headphones, no headphones, the album sounds absolutely incredible, sounds huge.
That's Ben. I think he made it sound big, but it's not overly loud. You know how sometimes records started getting overly loud, and then it would just like on your system. Like, I'll never forget. I had a project that I was working on, and I remember Alice in Chains had just come out, and it was great. It was this Alice in Chains record called Dirt. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And so I was like, damn, that sounds amazing. In my car, it was just at the brink, you know, like it was louder than everything else, but it wasn't like too loud. So I told that we were getting our record mastered, and we asked the guy, here, listen to this. Can you make it like this? He goes, well, I can take it a little further. So I'm like, yeah, take it further. But it was too much. We ended up going back and going, dude, it's like distorting my system. I can't even turn it up loud because it's crushing the system. So I realized slowly back in the 90s, you know, that there's a balance, you got to find it. And Ben Gross is really good at that stuff. It was kind of the situation where Ben was like, I want you guys to capture you guys with more of a 70s kind of vibe. So it's not going to be the loudest album. It'll be good. It'll be big, but not the loudest. You'll be able to crank it up like you can with Back in Black by AC/DC or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's him. And you know what's interesting? Like a lot of projects that you work on, whenever they mix it, they do it in Pro Tools. And so as you're recording, they're kind of mixing at the same time, because every time they make adjustments, as you know, it gets locked in, and then you close the session and save it. And then when you open it back up, it comes back just the same. Ben didn't do that. He treated the computer as a tape machine. He basically would use the tape just to record in the computer. Everything else was going through the board. So every time he'd put up a song, he'd have to push the drums up, push the bass up, get the guitars, change the pan and get it right. And then you'd put your part down and it would sound, you wouldn't know if it was exactly the sound, because he goes, it's not, obviously this is just a rough, it's, you know, it needs mixing. And so I never heard what it was going to be. And then when we got to LA, he would have like I was telling you, he'd have like a checklist. Hey, Doug, I need you for like 2 hours. You know, can you come in? I just need you to play this verse part on an acoustic. And then we go right to the verse. I do the acoustic part. And then he'd go, let's go to the chorus of Chosen and Justified. I want you to use the Wild Marshall. I do that in the chorus, but I wouldn't hear the whole song. So I didn't know what it was going to sound like. And then finally we get the mixes and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
the dude's he's got skills, you know, he's really good.
That's amazing. So there was no temptation for you to go back and tinker with stuff and change this and change that on the guitar and stuff like that.
I mean, there's always that temptation. You know, there was a couple times when I asked him, could we do this or that? And he obliged me. He was good. He would like, you know, he had, when we were recording, he had done some stuff with compression on my guitar that I really liked. It kind of made it punch out. And then when I heard his beginning mix on one song in particular, I was like, I wanted that sound like you had it. He goes, okay. So he just, you know, adjusted it, and he was like, I don't want to go too much because I don't want it to like then make the other stuff sound, it's got to fit with the other stuff. I go, I get it. But if you could just, you know, can I twist your arm and just get a touch more of that punch, you know? So he's really good. That's maybe one thing that he does with the mix, not just on my guitar, but with everything. He knows how to set compression, and that's a real trick, man, because you know, I can tell you know that you can go too far with it where it squeezes it down and makes it explode, but most of the time it's basically squeezing it down, and that kills the energy. Then you get periodic explosion, and it's cool, but it's better to have just a little taste of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so he was great with that. He really knows what he's doing, and he would use his ears. He would always do it just by ear. He wouldn't go by a setting that he had set for somebody else or something.
Fantastic. Yeah, but tell me something. Do you keep in mind what these songs will sound like live when you write?
Yeah, I mean, it's initially, you know, when you're writing, or for me, speaking for myself, I usually will just have a simple part, a riff, and I'll get a chord progression. I have melodies in my mind, and I think like, okay, live I could look for Like No Other. I thought like, start this song off with a Glenn groove, like something I know that Glenn would dig it, and then just have these passing chords behind it. So then when it gets to the verse, the bass could drop out, and Glenn, I could just see Glenn, you know, holding chord, just singing that thing, and then the chorus kicks in, and he gets to, you know, be doing his thing. So yeah, sometimes you envision live what you would do, but also we played these songs all live. We played them in rehearsal last year in October. Yeah, so we went through everything, and it was awesome, man. It was like it really felt, these songs really took a little bit more, even more life on, because like I said, you know, we played them, we recorded them, but we weren't really sure exactly what was happening. So then when you get in rehearsal, it's like, oh, that's that guitar part that I stuck on at the last minute. That's a feature now. So I'm gonna do that when we play live, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really cool to play it live and hear the finish, you know, hear the finished product, and then translate that into rehearsal.
Yeah. And you know, I've never seen the Daisies live. I've seen you guys on YouTube, and I think you're a band that needs to be experienced live, right?
Yeah, we have that's right. Absolutely.
You know, that and the combination of, you know, the songs on this album, I think will be absolutely stunning. But talking about writing, what is your process of writing? Because I was talking to Glenn, and I think he writes on an acoustic guitar, and he says it just flows. Songs just flow. So, do you write every day? What is your process?
If I usually get into a zone, like I won't try to write every day. Sometimes I'll get a hit for something, or I'll get a melody, or like the other day I was in my car and picking up my daughter from school, and I got a riff in my head, and I quickly just took my phone and, you know, recorded my mouth, you know, sang the riff, and then I figured it out on the guitar later. And I didn't go any further with it because I just wasn't in that writing head. I was more in the daddy head, you know, the father head. But generally I'll get in this room and I'll start to formulate ideas, and especially it helps if I know who the singer is, because then I can focus on things that I can think that maybe, you know, Glenn or David Coverdale or Dio or whoever would like, you know. And I'll start with, a lot of times I start with acoustic as well. It's easier than hooking up a electric guitar, turning the amp on, you know, all that stuff. You just pick up a guitar and you start to come up with something. And then maybe if I want to kind of get it down, maybe I am playing it on acoustic, but I'm envisioning it like as an electric riff. So then I'll put the electric guitar on later and try and experiment with the riff and see how what kind of options there are to play it, like maybe with a different tuning or maybe in a different key. You know, say like, for example, you could play Unspoken in the key of A, in the A tune, you know, like you could do Unspoken like this, but it doesn't sound the same as when it's in B. That's just got a thing when you land on the G. So that actually Glenn wrote that, but I'm just showing an example. So I would experiment with how different ways to play it, what key it sounds good in, and then I'll usually just put it down on a little demo format like Pro Tools or something. And sometimes I'll immediately have a riff and I'm like, I want to hear that with drums, and I'll kind of program a little drum thing to see how it goes, and then I'll maybe double it and then I'll stick a bass on it just for thing. And if I get a hit to keep going, I'll come up with a verse, or maybe I come up with the chorus first, and then I'll arrange it just roughly, maybe up to where a solo section would go. I don't even bother with the solo section or whatever. I just go like verse, chorus, or verse, bridge, chorus. Nice. And then that's an idea that I would then look at it objectively as I can and say, is this something I would want to present to Glenn and the guys, you know? And then I basically, when I present something, it's not like I'm going, hey, I got something for you, we got to do this. It's like, hey, I got something, I want you to check it out, see how you feel about it. Because I know Glenn well enough. Glenn needs to, first of all, Glenn's a complete songwriter. He doesn't need anybody to write with him. But it was the idea of us writing together that was going to give this something a little different, you know, and then everybody putting their stamp on it when you're recording it, taking the liberty of like trying and experimenting different ways to play it to improve the song. And that's what you get with that. So you get a flavor of Glenn's songwriting and the Dead Daisies together. But yeah, so I would present it to Glenn and I would say, what do you think? And you would either say, I dig that, you know, and I think we could, I mean, he can make anything sound good. Yeah. He could take, even if he wasn't feeling it, he could make it sound good, but he doesn't want to, you know, he's at a point where he doesn't want to do it unless he's getting off on it. So any idea that I would present to him, any song idea, I would present it open. Like, if he likes it, cool, we'll work on it and we'll see where it goes. If he's not feeling it, just put it away. And that's the best way to do it, is with no agenda and no pressure. And so that's how, with this particular lineup, that's how I would write.
Is it a more collaborative process for you now, Doug, as opposed to, you know, when you were at Dio and Whitesake? Were you then just playing other people's material, or do you have more ownership of it now?
No, I mean with Dio, I only wrote a couple songs with Ronnie for the Killing the Dragon album, and that was cool. But he had already had 8 songs written, so I came in and I did my performance on them and tried to make, you know, as I say, you can have a song that's written and it's there, but then once you put your guitar or put your bass or drums on it, you're trying to improve it, you know, you're trying to make it so that it becomes a better song, you know. And so with Dio, I did that with all the songs, and then co-wrote a couple songs with Jimmy Bain and Ronnie. And then with Whitesake, at the beginning, I was basically playing, you know, all Whitesake's catalog. That was it until 2005 or 6. David and I started to bang around. Actually, we started banging around on some ideas even in 2003 and 4, but it wasn't until 2005 and 6 that we actually started writing together, and it became a really strong partnership. We wrote I mean, during my time, we published 30 songs together. So I was really proud of that work. And I was definitely, it was a partnership with David and I that was just, it was unspoken. It was like, it just worked and we just went with it. It wasn't, but then we would pass the song on to the guys and then everyone would do their part. And then that's how it ended. You know, when I had a bunch of material that I was performing live with Whitesake. So it was definitely more ownership of that. With the Dead Daisies, when I joined the Dead Daisies, they said, we want to make a new record. And you know, Richard Fortus is going to Guns N' Roses with Dizzy. We're going to make a guitar record. We want you involved from the beginning. So that was great. And then we featured that album a lot live, but there were still some songs from past Daisies. And so we went on. But the thing about the way that we used to write when I first joined the band is we'd all sit down together with acoustic guitarists, like basically everybody. It was Brian Tichy, Marco, John Corabi, David Lowy, me, and Marty Fredrickson. So there'd be 6 of us. And we'd go, okay, who wants to go first? And it would be like, okay, I got something up, you know, I play this. And somebody would go like, that's cool. What if we do it like, what if we add this to that?
Yeah.
Then somebody else would go, let's, you know, I can hear like a straight beat with that, like this, but then, you know, halftime in the chorus. And so it was like very collaborative all the way from the get-go. And then Marty and John and David would work on lyrics and melodies and stuff. And then that went on for a couple albums until we got with Glenn. And I knew, you know, when, you know, Glenn and I talked and he goes, it's time for you and I to make some music together. And it's going to be with the Dead Daisies. I'm like, that's great. So like I said, I started to get a handful of things together that I wanted to present to the band, but mostly get Glenn, you know, it's got to get the singer involved. And then we all worked on them together or whatever, even, you know, and Glenn brought a bunch of music. He said to me, he goes, I don't really do demos. So it's like, I'm not sure how. I said, here's the thing, man. If you want to present those ideas, maybe we take them a little further and do a little bit of a demo on them. And that way you be able to get it how you want it. So he goes, all right. So I came down and he picked up the guitar and he's showing me an idea. And he goes, what do you think? I go, that's great. He goes, well, okay, when you do it, you know, fix it up. I go, no. It sounds great what you're doing. Let's just capture it how you hear it. Cause I think that's important. So he played guitar against a click track and he would just play the riff. And I would go, yeah, is that how you want it? He goes, yeah. I go, how's that tempo? And he's like, perfect. It's great. Okay. Then let's double it. So he would take the Les Paul. He's got a Black Beauty custom at his house that is a very special guitar. I'll let him tell you about it one day. But he was playing that thing and then I go, okay, double it. And then like, what's the next part? He goes, it's the verse. I go, how's it go? He put it down. I go, oh, that's cool. And he was open for little suggestions here or there, maybe, you know, like, hey, what if you did it like the other way or whatever? And but he played everything on these demos. And then we put a bass on it. We arranged it. And then I put a little very basic drum beat on it. I didn't want to go too far, but just so he could present his idea. Yeah. But he goes, hey, the guitars are a little out of tune here and there. You know, it's just like, I go, it doesn't matter. He goes, well, he's got a very sensitive ear. Glenn's I think he's like got perfect pitch. And so it gets weird when guitars are out of tune. So he goes, can you fix that stuff? I'm like, I will, but I need to suss it out first. I got to figure out, like, you know, if you're playing 2 notes and he's going, you know, maybe he's doing it that way. If I picked it up and I went, or like, and he's going sliding, it's a difference. So I wanted to suss it out. I wanted to suss out how he was doing it, and then I could make suggestions or try some different things. And it was cool because he really has a unique way. It's partly probably because he's a bass player, but it's partly because he's English and he's got a different feel. So I wanted to learn that and capture that, especially, you know, for this album that he was going to be involved in.
Yeah. But tell me, coming back to writing, Doug, do you think technology has made it easier to be more creative, or is it a stumbling block?
I think it's changed it, because before you really had to envision everything in your head, and little by little technology creeps in and makes it a little easier, so you don't have to think as much, you don't have to use your brain as much, is the way that I see it. Because like I had that idea, I quickly put it on my phone. Back, prior to phones, I would call, if I had a cell phone that was not a smartphone, I would call my home line and leave a message for myself on the answering machine.
Yeah.
Prior to that, if you were having an idea, you had to keep singing that idea in your head until you got to a guitar. And then you had to play, and you just be able to remember things more, because you were less reliant, or didn't get so lazy with all the technology. But now, man, if you and I, if you sang something to me right now or played something, I could take a microphone right here. I could take this microphone and I could record it coming through the phone, and then I could stick that into the computer, into Pro Tools, and I could find out what tempo that is that you were playing it, and then I could put a drum beat to it, and then add my guitar to it, email it back to you, and you could say, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to stick it in Pro Tools and edit it and make the chorus go twice as long. It's crazy, the technology. So I think the technology overall makes it easier, but we got to be careful not to get too lazy about it. Because I mean, before, people, when they wrote War Pigs, for example, all those parts in War Pigs by Sabbath, they had to envision that first and remember it, and they had to jam it out and and play it live over and over, and then finally they would get it. I don't know if, when they went home that night, if they would, I think they would remember it when they came back. They probably have 6 ideas that they were working on, and they remember it. Hey, remember that? Don't forget, we got that part. It comes after the, thing. So until and then they'd maybe have a little. I mean, Black Sabbath, they probably had a tape recorder that they could record it. But when I was a kid working on songs, there was nothing. I had to remember everything in my head. So.
No, there's no doubt, technology is a great tool to create new music. I mean, I'm trying to go back to the production of the new album. But it's a very fine line, because I feel the biggest hurdle is sometimes you create stuff that doesn't sound musical.
Yeah.
I feel that's kind of the fine line. And I think, that's where I was going with my question.
Yeah, I think what was good for us, and it was good for the last, let's say, Mark III Dead Daisies with John Corabi and Marco, and Mark IV Dead Daisies with Glenn, is that we were always in a situation where we would track live together in the studio, and we'd practice it. We'd play through it live as a band over and over until we got close to we thought it was good, and then we'd try to record it live together. So there's been a bunch of projects and sessions that I've done over the years where people would send me the drums and I put guitars on it, send it back. It doesn't have the same feel as that when you're tracking together, because I know that, like with Brian Tishy, if I'm standing in the room with him and I'm playing with him and I'm doing the part and I'm like, and he could see I'm about ready to dig in, or I could see he was about ready to go, he's getting ready to throw down. Then I know I'm going to do the same thing, and it translates onto the recording. If he just did that in his head, he's playing like this, and he does the parts, he plays like that. It doesn't have the same effect.
But anyway, Doug, lastly, are you still working multiple projects? What is the other stuff you're doing outside Daisies?
No, nothing really. I mean, I really, with Glenn, committed to promoting this album and not doing other things that were going to. I think I was, when I was in Whitesake, I was 100,000% Whitesnake, and I really was dedicated to that. I didn't do anything outside of Whitesake. I did one. I have this project, this project band, baby band, and it's called Burning Rain, that I've done over the past 20 years. And I did one thing on, like, basically in my free time with Whitesake. I'd fly home on the weekend and just knock it out. But other than that, I didn't do anything. And then when I was out of Whitesake, I started to take a few things and do a little bit more. And maybe it was too much. So I decided, to put everything on the back burner, focus on Dead Daisies at this point.
Does playing the guitar still excite you? Is it still the same after all these years?
Absolutely.
You still wake up feeling excited to play?
Yeah. The only difference is that because of our current situation, it's been harder to get into a normal routine, like the same thing every day. Like I could wake up and say, okay, we'll wake up, get my coffee, get my guitar, go in the studio and create. Like, because of the situation, now I've got a little more duties as a father. So I've got to get my kids ready for school, and then get, cook breakfast, do that stuff. And then I can, get to my guitar, or I can go to the gym, or not go to the gym, but work out, go for a run on the streets or whatever. And so it's a little bit of a juggling act right now, but I love playing guitar, and I love being in this this is my little home studio that I've done.
Nice.
I've been in this house for 25 years. I remember when I spent like, a couple $1,000 soundproofing this room and bought an air conditioner, a nice big air conditioner. And I've created so many things in this room. I've had everyone. Dio was in this room with me working, and
wow.
David Coverdale. Yeah, David and I wrote a bunch of stuff here, and we'd do demos here, and then we'd go up to his place. We'd trade off. Like, he'd come at my house for a week, and I'd go to his. But I've never forget when Ronnie would be over here. He loved my dog. He used to he'd play with her. He just wouldn't stop, and I'd be like, Ronnie, we should probably get to work. He's like, I know, but this dog just kills me. And last time he was here, I set him up back there, and I had a little party stand for him where he could have his, have a drink and have his lyrics, and just it was we were working on the last song he did, which was Electra. But yeah, and so the Dead Daisies, a lot of everything that I've turned in or brought to the band mostly has been done in this room, and so it's a good vibe here.
Amazing. I remember, growing up, we used to get these video cassettes. I think it was a series called Hard and Heavy. And one of the episodes, I don't know, do you remember it? One of these episodes had Ronnie giving everybody a tour of his house. This must have been...
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it must have been mid-'80s, late 80s maybe.
Yeah, he did a killer house. It's still, Wendy's still got it saved for him, but not saved for him, but in tribute to him. It's weird though, because that house is in Los Angeles. The houses are kind of, there's a lot of modern houses. There's a lot of classic houses. Wait 1 second. There's sorry, I lost you for a second. And so Ronnie had this old English house, and it was up on a hill, and it was like, it had a round spiral thing. Sorry. So it was really perfect for him. It was like the Man on the Silver Mountain house,
Yeah, I remember. I remember that. It's been what, 10, 12 years since he passed away.
10 years, yeah, 10 years.
Yeah. And last year was terrible, right? Eddie Van Halen. And, that was last year, just all around. Kobe Bryant was another one for me that I really missed. Neil Peart. Oh, it's terrible.
But anyway, we have a new year. We got a vaccine. We got to get healthy. Everyone needs to stay healthy. And I just want to thank you, bro, for a really great interview. And
thank you, Doug.
All the best to your viewers and listeners.
I hope we see you in India.
You will. It's just a matter of time.
I was talking to Glenn, and he's got some friends here, and he was like, "We really need to come to India." He's like, "India is the only place I haven't played." So,
thank you, bro. Well, I'm going to tell Glenn what you said, and look forward to seeing you. Sorry, I keep getting interrupted. My wife keeps calling me.
Not a problem.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right, brother.
I'll send you a copy of the interview. We're done, right?
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug. Take care.
All right, bro. You too. Bye.
Bye.